Webinar. Looks like we might have people joining as we go. Thank you for joining today, the webinar, Accounting in the New Normal. We will touch on the very recent trend, the majority of you guys out there working remotely in the cloud. I'm Taylor Grace. I am the QuickBooks Sales Channel Manager here at Swizznet, and with us today we have two awesome speakers I'm very, very excited about. First off, we have Laura Boyd, who is the CEO of Leadership Delta. I'm extremely excited to hear what she has to say about working through these unprecedented times that we're all going through right now. And from Swizznet, we have our president, Bob Hollander. So a very warm welcome to both of them joining us today. We move on to the next. All right, so we have a little brief agenda for today's luncheon webinar. We will have each guest speaker, give a little introduction about themselves, the background of their current business, and we will start the discussion today with Laura Boyd, who will be digging into the topic of leading in times of uncertainty. I have heard Laura speak a few times before, and I'm very interested to hear what she has to say regarding what's going on right now in the world and what advice she has to offer us for being successful during the months ahead. Following Laura, it will be Bob Hollander. He will get into the details of working in the new normal on a daily basis. So he's going to let us know some simple tricks and how to go from working on-prem to transferring over to the cloud and how exactly that all works out. After Bob gives his thoughts, we will kind of have a brief time for Q&A at the end, and we'd love to help answer any questions you guys might have out there remaining from the presentation. So with that said, it's my honor to pass the mic over to today's featured guest, Laura Boyd.
Well, thank you so much, Taylor, and welcome everybody. I think it's Thursday. I'm starting to not know what day is which, so I shouldn't say I'm starting to. I've been doing that for the last 3 months. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about how do you lead in times of uncertainty, which we've been dealing with uncertainty since March, but actually we've been dealing with uncertainty our whole lives. And so this is just coming to the forefront for businesses is how do you continue to lead in these kinds of times? And so I just thought it might be interesting to share a little bit of my background with you first. So Taylor, if you can move to the next slide. So I have over 25 years of experience. I have been working with professional service organizations most of my career, and including being the chief marketing officer of Clifton Larson Allen early in the 2000s, and then also for a smaller firm here in Minneapolis with Frayling Anderson. So I love working with professional services. I love working with financial experts, and I know I'm not supposed to use that word, so I will say financial specialists. And so today I wanted to share a little bit about how to lead, but I want you to be thinking about today, not necessarily just for your organization, but I know you have clients out there that could potentially use this information as well. So put the hat on of your own organization today, as well as maybe some of your clients, and hopefully we can have a good discussion or presentation. So we'll move forward on that. All right, Taylor, you can, okay, so here's the interesting thing. Mm-hmm. We all kind of got sucker punched, right? And so when this happened, we want to say, now what? I know I have many clients that were on this high trajectory of growth and sales, revenue, profit, all of this, and then all of a sudden everything came to a screeching halt. And so now it is trying to figure out how do we handle this going forward. So I wanted to share a process that is pretty simple to use and to be thinking about, but hopefully it'll give you some clarity in how you can lead during this time. So Taylor, if you'd switch to the next slide. Yeah. And you can push it again. So really, when you are leading in uncertainty, you really need to start with the reality. And reality, when I think of reality, we have to think of it in terms of it just is what it is. And so, Taylor, you can move the next slide, sorry.
Great.
You can go to the next one even. So when we're talking about leading and we're talking about reality, it's really important to understand that understanding reality is what is, not what it is not. Because if you start to focus on what it is not, it gets really frustrating and there's disappointment. And so I think it's important to say what is has no inherent meaning. And I think part of the challenge that we're having with COVID is we feel like we have these ancillary dates out there that things are going to go back to normal. And what is this normal that we talk about? Because the normal we're talking about is not going to be the same as it was maybe even March 1st. And so our normal has now shifted, and what that looks like. We all are experiencing people working from home. We all are experiencing these virtual conversations. We are having this, what I call illusion to human connectivity. And so how do we continue to build the hybrid that we're going to end up with as our new normal? Our teams are not, every client I have, none of those teams are going back to the brick and mortar 100%. It will be a hybrid of the continuing to work from home, to continue to have these virtual meetings, to continue to need virtual packages, cloud computing, all of those kinds of things. So that's going to be our new norm. So how are we going to address it? And I think the key part is that when we think of reality, it's not good or bad, right or wrong, but it is how we respond to it. That's the key part of when we think of reality. It is how you as a leader are going to respond to these challenges and these uncertainties. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. So moving on to the next slide. When you have something that happens and you decide, okay, this is what it is, now you need to respond. What is it, reassess. Now you need to reassess. And so what I'm finding is that a lot of our clients are running into a challenge because the strategy isn't necessarily the same strategy. And so what we've been working on is how do you shift your strategy, not necessarily your goal, your end goal. Maybe the revenue changes, some of the numbers might change, but the goal might stay the same. So how can you actually shift your strategy? And so when we look at organizations, there's 7 key areas that we look at. And I think it's important for you all to think about this for your own organization and your clients. But there's the external environment that impacts our company or our organization. And we all know what is happening right now with some of the challenges with the COVID. And then it also ultimately impacts our results. So when you look at the environment and the results, we as organizations do not have control. That's the reality. We do not have control over the external environment, and we don't have control over our own results. But the 5 areas in the middle that we have direct control over is where you come in. You have control over what is your strategy, what is the culture, what are the core processes, systems, and structures that are going to impact the strategy and culture. And so that's really important to understand. When your strategy shifts and you might need some more virtual online help, how do you adjust your systems and structure and processes to meet the needs of that strategy? So when you go to the next piece in terms of responding, let's pull out strategy just for excitement. So most of you know how to do a SWOT analysis. And I think when we are in times of uncertainty, it's important to look at the vulnerabilities and the opportunities within the SWOT analysis. And so when we think about it and you're thinking about strategy, figure out where some of your vulnerabilities are on the operations side. Think about your products and services. Where are some of the vulnerabilities with the world that we're living in today? How is that going to change your products and services? I have one client that I work with that has for 27 years been in the office furniture space. So when you think of that particular client, think of how their world has changed quite dramatically. And the good news is they have diversified into technology about 10, 15 years ago. And so interestingly enough, when we were talking about their strategy earlier this year, their focus was still so much on the office furniture, and now we've had to pivot. Now we've had to look at the vulnerabilities there. And so that was an easy shift to let's start tackling some of these opportunities on the technology side. And then also look at your customer satisfaction. Where are some of the vulnerabilities there? Where are the opportunities? Profitability, revenue growth. I know of some organizations that have been able to change their whole entire manufacturing structure so that they can meet the needs of what some of the hospitals need. And it's totally different than what we're currently doing every day, day in and day out. And so it gave them an opportunity to help the hospital systems, to help healthcare, and to help, the United States essentially, but they had to shift. And so it's those opportunities that you need to look at from a strategy standpoint is where are we most vulnerable and where are our biggest opportunities, and start shifting and pivoting your strategy. And so when you do that, the next step is to really develop an excellent plan. I mean, that goes without saying, right? We're all smart people. We know we need to have a plan. My biggest thing that I tell clients is small hinges move big doors. So I think what ends up happening is when we're pivoting or changing our strategy, we go from 0 to 100, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. If you actually look up the definition of pivot, it's just a short little step. And I always think about it from a basketball standpoint, from junior high, where I always had to pivot that 1 foot, and it was just a small step. But it doesn't have to be an overhaul of your strategy. So just develop a plan, put those small hinges in place for your big door. And then the next thing is to align your leadership team. Is the leadership team in alignment with the strategy? Did you include them? Do they have buy-in? And they don't necessarily have to have the decision-making power, but they might have some great ideas. Get them on the same page as you. And when I talk about leadership team, I'm also talking about you that might have some clients in that capacity. Maybe are you part of their leadership team? Can you help them with some of their strategies, working with your clients and helping them with their strategy? And here's the key part that we all know needs to happen, but publicize a communication plan. Get a communication plan in order for the small pivot of your strategy and some of the changes then from a system, structure, and process standpoint. Don't only communicate it to your employees, but also include and communicate it to your clients and customers. I think that's a key part that we sometimes forget is when we're shifting things or moving things around or changing and going towards opportunities and away from vulnerabilities, we forget to let our clients know. And that's just as important as letting our employees know. So make sure you publicize a communication plan for the strategy. And then, so when you think about reality, reassessing, and then responding, the only way to do this is through strong leadership. And this is where it comes in. And it was funny because Bob and I were talking about just briefly before the call that this is the same process that you use for any technology change or update. And so when we talk about leadership, we're talking about that change management component. Leadership is so critical today. I can't tell you how many webinars I've been on from a leadership standpoint that leaders are going to excel and those that don't know how to lead are going to fail. And so this is how you can be a strong leader. There are 3 components that really make up leadership. The first is that you need to have a clear and compelling vision. And some of my leaders say, Laura, I can't have a clear and compelling vision when I don't even know what the world looks like. And I say, start with what you know. Don't focus on what you don't know, but start with what you know. What does your vision look like in what you know as the reality? The second piece is now you have to translate that vision into reality. So put a plan in place, get your communication ready, translate that into a reality. And then the last piece, which I think we forget about often, is we have to, as leaders, have the ability to rally people around that vision. And people say, it's so hard to do on Zoom. How do I connect with our virtual teams? I'm sorry to say it, y'all, but this is our new world. It's going to be a hybrid, so we need to figure out how we can connect with people online. And so you have to have a clear, compelling vision, translate that vision into reality, and then rally the people behind it. And a lot of times it comes with communication and just the motivation behind it. So let's talk a little bit about leadership, because that's what I focus mostly on when I'm working with my clients is the team and personal leadership. So when we talk about leadership, anytime you ask what makes a great leader, people will say they need to be trustworthy. And as when you talk about trustworthy, if anybody's ever read Patrick Lencioni, he talks a lot about that vulnerable trust. we all know that we don't know what's going on with COVID. It changes on a daily basis. And it's actually even changed this week. We opened up states. Now they're closing back down. What does that look like? So it's okay to say, I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. But what you're trying to do is you're building trust with your teams and with your companies and your clients. So when you say, I don't have all the answers, but here's what I know today and here's how we're going to move forward, people will respect you more for that. The second thing is to be confident and positive. When I talk about positive, you can't be the Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. You can't be the Eeyore leader. You need to be somebody that is saying, hey, it is what it is, and this is how we're going to respond to it. The next piece is to be courageous. Some of those organizations that shifted pretty quickly to help some of the hospitals and healthcare, they had to be courageous. They were totally outside their comfort zone, but they were saying, hey, I think we can do it. We've got the right materials. We can help and we can make it happen. And those companies right now are flourishing. The other piece is to be empathetic. We hear this a lot. When you talk about leaders, you need to be empathetic towards everybody's situation. Some of your team members might be having some deaths in their family. Some of them are working from home that have little kids at home. There's just so much going on in people's personal lives right now that the empathetic leader is going to stand out as somebody that people want to follow. And then the last piece is resilience. You need to have resilience on a personal leadership standpoint. How do you oversee and overcome some of these obstacles? People are looking for you from that aspect. And then you can change to the next slide, Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
So action leadership, we talked about it. Create a vision. Keep it simple. Communicate, communicate, communicate. That's why it's number 3, so I can say communicate, communicate, communicate. No, that's not true. But I think when we're at the leadership level, we are talking so much about it that once we start communicating, we forget that nobody else has heard it. You know, whether it's our employees, our team members, our clients, because we've addressed it so much at the executive level, we forget that not everybody knows it. So communicate it. The next piece is you got to act on it. You got to have some sort of movement. If it's a strategy change, how do you have to change your systems, process, and structure? And I know Swizznet has an opportunity to help a lot of your clients and to help you as well. So they're going to talk about that in a little bit. The last piece is seeking clarity. So in your action leadership, make sure you're seeking clarity. Where are we at? Checking in with your team members, finding out, hey, how's it going? How's this new opportunity? How are we doing from a virtual standpoint? It's really seeking clarity from your team and then maybe reassessing where you might need to go. So here's what I want to ask you. I think this is so interesting because people say, how do I lead in this time? So when we say, how is leadership different from before COVID? And Taylor, this is the next slide. I'm trying to build up to this. So how is leadership different from before COVID? And here's what I want to tell you is leadership isn't different before COVID. Leadership right now is just about you being more intentional in your leadership. Right now, we need strong leaders and we need people to step up. We need them to be visionaries. We need them to set a course for how we get there, and they need to be motivating. You need to help us, and you need to make sure that you're bringing your teams along with you on this new vision. So the difference in leadership right now is just to be more intentional. And so as Swizznet now goes into their plan and some of the products that they have available that helps you and your teams, this is the opportunity. When we talked about systems, structures, and processes, they might have a tool that's perfectly aligned with where the new strategy is going for some of your clients, if not your organization. So I'll turn it over to, I think I'm turning it over to Bob, aren't I?
I'll take it from there, but Lori, that was awesome. Great tips and advice for, what we're going through right now. But yeah, that was very great. Up next is Bob Hollander, president of Swizznet. We really appreciate that little presentation there, Laura. It was really, really great information. And at this time, I will hand it over to Bob.
Thanks, Taylor. Also, thanks, Laura. That was spot on. And for everybody on the webinar, I'll tell you, we are picking up right where Laura left off. All the uncertainty that we're encountering in the market right now is really creating challenges for our customers and enterprises really all over the place. So we're going to talk next a little bit about making sure your company is set to handle this new normal that Laura did a good job explaining. This new normal has been shared by our customers is impacting the business operation of so many small, medium, and even large businesses. Access to systems, the way you do business, all really subject to challenge and change in creating essentially the new normal. So let's look at a quick comment about the new normal. This was by Jeannie Meister just at the end of March as the pandemic was spreading pretty rapidly. And here's the quote that she's got. COVID-19 is going to be the greatest workplace transformation that we see in our lifetime. She goes on to share that how we work, exercise, shop, learn, communicate, and of course, where we work will be changed forever. So think about all those impacts on our business, on our employees, and you can see that this new normal is going to be really something that's a challenge to lead through. On the next slide, here's another proof point that the way we work, this new normal, is transforming quickly. So here's the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella. He shared that by his estimate, we've seen almost 2 years worth of digital transformation in just the last 2 months. So folks are responding, and folks are having to change the way they are doing business. Further, he shares that Microsoft is working with their customers to help them adapt to this new normal, change the way they do business, and stay open. So that's what enterprises need to be doing. Service providers need to be doing, working with their customers to help keep them open, help keep them productive. And that's just what Swizznet's doing. Here's some additional information about just how dramatic this digital transformation has gone on, how big it's been. So all those human interactions are being replaced with digital interactions, as Laura mentions, and it can be challenging. But just take a look at some of these stats. 200 million Microsoft Teams participants on a single day. Teams is that Microsoft collaboration platform. They had 4.1 billion meeting minutes that day, and they're averaging about 75 million users on their Teams platform daily now, right? Well, you've got to replace the way you were doing business before. And great example, there's even 20 companies with over 100,000 employees on Teams. So you know the change is on, the change is afoot. So with that, let's get a little bit of perspective about where we've come from and where we're headed to. So we know the old model for how we operated our systems, how and where we delivered systems for our employees, right? The old model, the corporate model, was everything was hosted on site. So you ran your business with technology, software, servers, et cetera, located at your corporate office, your office park, your business location, whatever it might be. It was all do-it-yourself IT services, and you supported it yourself. And generally, everybody had access from their desktop to their systems. More recently, we know that the move to cloud has been on, and that's the move to this hybrid model. And that's where you blend what you were doing before. Some of your systems, run on site at your business location, but more and more companies were adopting cloud services as a complement to their own systems that they operated themselves. So we've seen the rapid expansion of SaaS services, hosted applications, and then coming along with that, third-party support for those applications. You didn't do it all yourself. You used a lot of cloud technology, and all that cloud technology was delivered via remote access. Well, what's new since that hybrid model? It's now just this clamoring access for work from home access. Remote access is trumping all strategies. It's not elegant, right? It's just that people need to gain access to the systems that they had access to before you closed your office, or before your workers had to social distance and work from home, right? So that's what's happening right now. It's accelerated the move from hybrid into more and more cloud technology that delivers remote access, delivers applications to your employees. Well, that's what Swiznet's largely about. We help our customers handle the technology change. But let's not get over-focused on the technology. Laura calls it out. There's only so much we can do so fast that our employees can address, adopt, and consume, right? I think her call-outs are so on target. What's the reality of the impact on your work environment? How are you reassessing how you're going to do work? And then how are you responding? So at Swizznet, we help our customers really understand the people impact of changing systems, how to make the change, and then what the right technology is. So when you give consideration to, what this new normal is doing with your employees, impacting their productivity, you've got to contemplate how much change can they adapt to. You want to keep things stable, but you've got to respond as Laura calls it out. So what's the capacity for change? Can you change a lot of things? Can you change just a few things? And don't underestimate the emotion that goes along with changing systems, changing access. Maybe folks aren't able to see their friends at the break room anymore. Maybe there aren't enough interactions for people to keep that cultural connectivity tissue that was so important to your business. You've got to understand that folks are going through an emotional change resulting from the new normals as well. So that's where you then think a little bit about change management. And change management is that business practice of slowly deploying change in such a way that folks can adapt to it, can consume it, and you can gain from it. A great book that I've leveraged in my time is a book by John P. Cotter, Leading Change. It really parallels what Laura talks about. And check it out. Here's just maybe a few more bullets to what Laura already said. So if you're going to lead your team through change, through technology change, you'll want to take a look at building a roadmap, having some steps to guide them. Laura's got her steps. This book has some very similar steps. It's amazing how they parallel. Create a sense of urgency. Well, COVID's done that for us. Get a guiding coalition. Who are the people that are going to help lead, who buy off on the change you're going to implement and are going to lead that change? And then, as Laura said, communicate that vision, take action, generate short-term wins and consolidate the gains, and then anchor that change in your culture. So great book. I'll also tell you, one of the favorite things about this book, really any book for me, is that it's thin. It's thin. Under 200 pages. Pick up this book. It's a great roadmap to driving change. Okay, and then once you're ready, this is where Swizznet helps a lot of our enterprise customers address their technology change. Remember, your first goal is to enable work productivity. How do you get people back productive so that you can keep your business running? It's not about cool systems. It's not about cool software. It's not about all the price sensitivity or all the extra investment. Sure, those impact your decision, but you got to really be thinking about how you enable work productivity. Do you want to preserve the same functionality they had before, or do you want to change it? So, hey, are you going to race to the cloud and change your applications, or are you going to use the same applications in a cloud format? Very important. Are you going to add some new functionality? Hey, there's an upside to this benefit. We're going to be in a more secure environment, or it's going to have more security for your remote devices. It's going to have better backups, things like that. Or you're going to have to compromise and remove some functionality as part of your move to enabling remote access. So make sure you know your priorities. How much do you want to just enable users versus enhance what they were doing before? If you can enhance while enabling, that's a great play. So let's talk a little bit about Swizznet in particular and what we're doing to try to make this change, this new normal, palatable for our clients. So one of the critical apps that any enterprise has is their accounting software. They're located at your corporate office, but you need access in the cloud. That's what Swizznet does. And that cloud in the picture of this, the screen is really just what Laura called a hinge to the doorway of remote access and productivity. So Swiznet's expert at making sure that the same application that your users were used to engaging with, running for accounting, we can port to the cloud, make available anywhere through special technology, and therefore get them back and working, right? So we can change their access, but not change the application. Very important when it comes to enabling productivity without tipping over your team. So again, we take your familiar accounting software and other applications, locate them in the cloud, and through special remote desktop solution technology, make it available from any device at any time, okay? So on the next slide, you can see consequently, you can move to the cloud and have your team leveraging the exact same accounting software. You do get to enhance the experience because you'll be moving to a cloud platform that generally might deliver more secure access, have better redundancy, and offer you some more features around security. Also, Swizznet delivers strong backups and disaster recovery options. So at the end of the day, you can benefit by delivering the same familiar application that your users accustomed to operating, just in a new access methodology, no retraining, etc. And then you'll see on this next slide that Swizznet and any partner that you team with to help manage the new normal needs to have services designed around onboarding the application and onboarding your users. Swizznet teams with our clients to make sure we understand your needs. We have experts on all manner of software, accounting software technology, and we can have our clients up and running in hours. And then if you need full servers, it usually is just a day or two. And then we deliver all that onboarding support and training. Imagine this. You move all your users to a cloud platform, you move all your users to Teams, for example, as we saw in that previous slide. Who's helping you do that? You'll need to select a partner that has capability, who's familiar with people making the change and can help the end users themselves. The last thing you want to do is take on strategic change and then be stuck trying to manage all that change yourself, right? So pick a partner like Swizznet, who's got capabilities, expert knowledge on your applications, and then a 24/7 methodology to support you. So with that, you can see that this new normal and the challenges our clients are facing today really causes you to move through a purposeful strategy if you want to be successful. Know the reality, reassess your approach, respond and take action, and then here's the underlying message from today. You've got to lead that change. Whether it's, as Laura says, leading your teams through that change or leading a technology change, perhaps with the help of Swizznet, you've got to have a strategy and lead through these changes because people need that help and need that guidance, and it's the only way you can be successful.
Wow, thank you, Bob, for that and letting us know how Swiznet's helping move from on-prem to the actual cloud now. That was really great. To help all you guys out there, all the attendees during these times, Swiznet's offering incentives through the end of this month, so the end of June. But everyone on the webinar, we're actually going to extend that to the end of July, so you can get 50% off your first 3-month payments to help you move from on-prem to the cloud. So with all that said, if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask away. We can do so. You can send those questions in via chat on the right side of the screen, and we can all take a stab at answering those for you. If we have any of those questions, I can take a look and see if we have any. Give it a couple minutes here, or another couple minutes. Looks like no questions really, so I just wanted to thank everyone for taking an hour or so out of your day today to join the webinar featuring Laura Boyd and Bob Hollander. I want to thank them both for their expertise, all the great ideas for helping us move forward during this current time period. So have a great rest of your day, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks, everyone.